Hello, I am Richard Gilbert, the attorney for more than 400 delegates in the federal case. This is my second video on the Romney organized crime family. The purpose of these videos is to offer Romney delegates crucial reasons why their conscience should convince them not to vote for Romney. If the court tells them they are free to vote their conscience, they need to have reasons not to vote for Romney. Ron Paul delegates also need to know the information in these videos, so you can meet Romney delegates and help them to understand the serious criminal acts involving election fraud and even the more frightening Romney support to imprison U.S. citizens in concentration camps. Concentration camps on U.S. soil, which is all the reason any Romney delegate would need to not vote for Romney. The existence of these concentration camps is not disputed by Halliburton, who built them. Halliburton openly admits they built the concentration camps. There is no dispute about the existence of the internment camps. They already exist. When your wife or husband is imprisoned in a concentration camp, or when your whole family is imprisoned without any court, without any legal counsel, or any charges for an indefinite term, you will know then that you never should have voted for Romney, who supports these. Romney supports the concentration camps, but you don't know it. You don't know Romney supports the end of our Constitution. Yet the time to save your loved ones, the time to save our Constitution, the time to save our nation is right now. Romney delegates can save our nation at the Organized Crime Convention in Tampa by not voting for Romney. This is the only way you can save our nation, by not voting for Romney. The photos I showed you of concentration camps in my first video are already built in the United States. Those were real photos of real concentration camps. They exist. We cannot ignore them because it is too frightening to talk about. It is an act of civil disobedience for me to show you this classified document. I am showing you a classified document entitled Internment and Resettlement Operations. It's from the Department of the Army. This is a classified document about concentration camps that already exist in the United States. There are more than 800 of them, and you need to be brave. You need to be able to learn this information. This classified document states right on it, distribution restriction. That's why it's classified. Distribution authorized to the Department of Defense only. Destruction notice. Destroy by any method that will prevent disclosure of the contents or reconstruction of this document. This is a classified document. They want to resettle you, and they want to imprison you in internment camps that are already built on U.S. soil. It is an act of civil disobedience that I just committed. The government is ramping up capacity to imprison up to 10 million U.S. citizens in concentration camps. So when Romney says he wants to just put Al-Qaeda in concentration camps, do you believe there are 10 million Al-Qaeda members in the United States? David Callahan, the operations director for the federal lawsuit, has posted this classified document of the internment camp manual, the internment and resettlement operations manual, at a website. You can read the entire document. You can read how they intend to use force against you. The website is electionfraudremedy.com. electionfraudremedy.com. You can view the classified operations manual for concentration camps on U.S. soil. You can read it for yourself. You want proof? I'm giving you proof. And in the following videos that come after this, I'm going to be giving you more proof. You will have no doubt about the existence of the concentration camps, the more than 72 fusion centers, and the drones that are spying on you, all without court orders and no probable cause. The Department of Homeland Security has purchased 1 million military-grade weapons to kill us. Romney endorses the internment camps. This is Romney's stated policy. Romney says we should just trust him.
Governor Romney's system has mandates in Massachusetts, although you've backed away from mandates on a national basis.
No, I like mandates. The mandates work.
Beg
your pardon?
I didn't
know you were going to admit that.
No, absolutely.
You like mandates.
Let me tell you what kind of mandates I like, Fred, which is this. If
the ones you come up with.
Here's my view. If somebody can afford insurance and decides not to buy it, and then they get sick, they ought to pay their own way, as opposed to expect government to pay their way. And that's an American principle. That's a principle of personal responsibility. So I said this: if you can afford to buy insurance, then buy it. You don't have to if you don't want to buy it, but then you got to put enough money aside that you can pay your own way. Because what we're not going to do is say, as we saw more and more people in this country doing,
you impose tax penalties in Massachusetts.
Yeah, we
people
say,
who
look,
don't buy it.
if people can afford to buy it, either buy the insurance or pay your own way. Don't be free riders and pass on the cost of your health care to everybody else.
The government is going to make you buy insurance.
No, the government's going to stop.
I mean, the state, your state plan, which is, of course, different from your national plan, did require people to make that choice, though. The state required them to do that. What was the penalty if they refused?
They refused to pay your... Let's go back, Fred. What's your view? If somebody...
Well, I asked the question first.
No, okay. Well, I'll answer your question, you answer mine. If somebody is making, let's say, $100,000 a year and doesn't have health insurance, and they show up at the hospital and they need a $1,000 repair of some kind for something that's gone wrong, and they say, look, I'm not insured, I'm not going to pay. Do you think they should pay or not?
Did your plan cut people off at $100,000? Was that the level?
No, actually...
Did it only apply to people with $100,000 income and over?
It actually applies to people at 3 times federal poverty. They pay for their own policy. At less than 3 times federal poverty, we help them buy a policy so everybody is insured and everybody is able to buy a policy that's affordable for them. And the question is this, again, if someone can afford a policy and they choose not to buy it, should they be responsible for paying for their own care, or should they be able to go to the hospital and say, you know what, I'm not insured, you ought to pay for it? What we found was 1/4 of the uninsured in my state were making $75,000 a year or more. And my view is they should either buy insurance or they should pay their own way with a health savings account or some other savings account.
We have an expression in television, we get in the weeds. We're in the weeds now on this. But let me just come to one point. Yes or no, in your national plan, would you mandate people to get insurance?
I think my plan is a good plan that should be adopted by other states. I wouldn't tell every state.
Would you mandate?
I would not mandate at the federal level that every state do what we do. But what I would say at the federal level is we'll keep giving you these special payments we make if you adopt plans that get everybody insured. I want to get everybody insured. In Governor Schwarzenegger's state, he's got a different plan to get people insured. I wouldn't tell him he has to do it my way, but I'd say each state needs to get busy on the job of getting all our citizens insured.
That alone is all the reason every delegate needs not to vote for Romney. This is the last chance to save our country, to save our freedom and liberty from the police state that has already begun. The purpose of these videos is to do just that. I am not here to sing to the choir of Ron Paul supporters. Although Ron Paul delegates and supporters need to become experts on this information, I am here to help save our nation and get Romney delegates to vote for Ron Paul as if the very survival of our nation depends on it. Because it does. Mr. Romney, I say to you, you are going to learn that no one, and I mean no one, pushes around a Ron Paul delegate and politically survives. In the event you receive what can only be called a fraudulent nomination based on your national campaign of election fraud, turning our once stellar republic and democracy into a third world crime-based rigged election in nearly every state, you have embarrassed the United States before the entire world with your election fraud crimes. Know this, Mr. Romney, there will be no party unity. There will be no unanimous nomination for a criminal such as you, who will go down in history as a fraudulent nominee if you manage to steal the nomination, having committed the massive criminal acts you have committed in almost every state with your crime syndicate, traveling from state to state like locusts, committing flagrant election fraud, including violence, breaking bones, threats of violence, intimidation, coercion, ballot stuffing, ballot stealing, and outright fraud. You stole ballot boxes and ran to cars to drive off with stolen ballots. You programmed voting machines to fraudulently attribute votes for other candidates to be counted for you. You threw 17 elected delegates off your own Massachusetts home state delegation when you were soundly defeated in Massachusetts by Dr. Paul. These were duly elected delegates who refused to sign your perjury declaration that they would vote for you and not Dr. Paul. They were duly elected to vote for Dr. Paul. And now you are committing fraud against the Maine and Louisiana delegates, removing them just because they have the common sense not to vote for you. Mr. Romney, you are nothing but a criminal who used violence and the threat of violence in several states to intimidate and coerce delegates. When your crimes do not work, you just throw duly elected delegates off their state delegations like the pathetic crime boss you are. In Maine and Louisiana, you are again attempting to throw duly elected delegates off their delegations solely because they have the good sense not to support a criminal like you. You have party chairmen threaten and harass plaintiffs to a federal lawsuit, which itself is a crime, like your Georgia chairman and other state chairmen. More than 300 witness affidavits and video evidence are filed in federal court for the world to see what kind of a criminal election fraud rigging candidate you are. We will never permit a criminal such as you to have the keys to the Oval Office. Listen carefully, Mr. Romney. No party unity, no unanimous nomination, no presidency. Without the votes of Ron Paul supporters, you cannot win the presidency. You need our votes to win, and we will not ever vote for a criminal such as you. And I say this respectfully. Dr. Paul insists that all supporters be respectful. So it is with all due respect that I tell you, you are nothing but a criminal. You are a criminal running a crime syndicate. You are not the lesser of two evils. You are evil. In high school, You are a violent bully, and now you are the crime boss of a criminal syndicate. As Republicans, we have a special obligation to prevent a crime boss of a criminal syndicate from ever becoming president. And as good Republicans and decent, respectful people, we shall meet that responsibility. We can defeat you just by not voting for you, but we will actively make 100% certain you never get the keys to the Oval Office. Recently, when you got caught having committed the felony crime of filing fraudulent papers with the SEC about your CEO activities with Bain in the years 99 through 2002, you wanted an apology. An apology is due. You are correct. An apology is owed. So listen carefully, Mr. Romney. To the American people, we Republicans apologize for this serial criminal, Mr. Romney. Mr. Romney, you committed tax fraud, and you admitted it when you requested amnesty. That is why you cannot release your tax returns. Prominent Republicans in growing numbers demand you release your tax returns and stop hiding. But you cannot release your returns because you are a criminal, and your returns will prove it. The delegates need to know about your $8.5 billion criminal Ponzi scheme that you and your son are involved in. What kind of a criminal involves his own son in such a crime? What kind of father involves his own son in such a crime? What does that say about your character? Now you have sleepless nights, envisioning yourself in prison for years. You have lawyers searching for countries you can flee to escape criminal prosecution and extradition proceedings. I will save you the time and money. It is France. You need to hide out in France, where even child molesters are not extradited back to the United States to face justice. You already speak French. You learned French when you were hiding out from the Vietnam War in France in a French palace. You supported the Vietnam War for your political resume, as long as others had to do the dying. You are, in every sense, foreign. Really, Mr. Romney, you allowed your son to be part of a Ponzi scheme crime? You provided millions of dollars for seed money to start a multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme to sell fraudulent certificates of deposits to crime victims, and you profited from the crime. You still have the profit money, and you have not returned it to the crime victims of the fraudulent certificate of deposit Ponzi scheme. You have both criminal and civil exposure that could wipe out your savings. Your Ponzi scheme associate, Alan Stanford, is already in prison serving a 110-year sentence. A 110-year sentence, Mr. Romney, for the Ponzi scheme crime that you participated in with your seed money. What might the criminal sentence be for you and your other partners? Respectfully, Mr. Romney, you are no small-time criminal. Now you have sleepless nights worrying that your imprisoned business associate will roll over on you, and to get a lighter sentence, he may testify against you. The crime has already been proven. Your business partner is serving a 110-year sentence. You invested millions of dollars to seed the criminal enterprise, and you profited from it. Now you seek to hide this from the delegates to your organized crime convention in Tampa. Don't you think the delegates have a right to know about your Ponzi scheme, your tax fraud, your election crimes? Your son is proud of this investment. He said, and I'm quoting, I am directly quoting your son's words, quote, "They're friends of ours. We own a piece of them. We helped them get started," unquote. Your own son said, and this bears repeating, quote, "They're friends of ours. We own a piece of them. We helped them get started." So, Mr. Romney, Alan Stanford, who is serving 110 years in prison, is a friend of yours. You own a piece of him. You helped him start the Ponzi scheme, Mr. Romney. That is called a confession. You own a stake in the $8.5 billion Ponzi scheme with Spencer Zwick. Does the name Spencer Zwick sound familiar? Spencer Zwick is your chief fundraiser. So you want to be the nominee of the Republican Party. You and your son, along with your chief fundraiser, are all implicated in an $8.5 billion Ponzi scheme, with the $8.5 billion still missing, and you still have your profits and your offshore accounts and your massive nationwide election fraud, which results in many delegates attending your organized crime convention who should not be, but for your election fraud crimes. And you cannot release your tax returns because your tax returns are a confession that you are a tax fraud who confessed to being a tax fraud to take advantage of amnesty. All this, and you want the right to put U.S. citizens in concentration camps with no criminal charges, no courts, no legal counsel, no due process of law, and hold U.S. citizens indefinitely for as long as you and your crime buddies feel like it. We will not go silently into the night, surrendering our liberties to your concentration camps ruled by your crime family. Your support for internment camps is the defining issue of your organized crime convention. Hear me again. Your support for internment camps is the defining issue of your organized crime convention. People are so afraid of the concentration camps that they do not want me to talk about them. But I will be exposing your support of these concentration camps for U.S. citizens often. And I will be calling upon all delegates to have the strength to deal with the truth. These internment camps already are built by Halliburton. Halliburton admits to building them. The law that you, Mr. Romney, support that allows these internment camps is NDAA. It's already enacted. The executive order that you, Mr. Romney, support that authorizes this police state is already signed. And the photos I showed of internment camps are real photos of existing internment camps with double barbed wire fences on U.S. soil. I know this is very frightening to many people. Everyone needs to get their heads wrapped around this frightening issue so we can end the police state before things get much worse. The delegates have a right to see your tax returns and know all this information about your crimes. The delegates have a much better choice than you. You are the worst Republican candidate ever. We have a genuine 100% conservative, Dr. Paul. Dr. Paul is a good and decent man who has led an exemplary life with a 30-year career of public service dedicated to protecting our freedom and liberties and saving the Constitution. Dr. Paul is the best candidate since George Washington. Dr. Paul has a heart for liberty and freedom and the wisdom of Socrates. Dr. Paul knows the concentration camps and fusion centers that you want are all unconstitutional. No person with common sense who knows this information could ever vote for you, Mr. Romney. No delegate to your organized crime convention who has a conscience can vote for you. A Romney presidency would be worse than Watergate from day one. Mr. Romney, you have the right to remain silent. A right that you do not recognize for other U.S. citizens you decide to imprison in concentration camps. Mr. Romney, anything you say may be held against you in a court of law. A due process right to a court that you do not recognize for other U.S. citizens. You have the right to an attorney, Mr. Romney, a right that you deny to other U.S. citizens that you want to imprison in your concentration camps. Do you understand your rights, Mr. Romney? They come from the Constitution, a Constitution that only gets in the way of your endorsed policies. People ask, why am I helping Santorum and Gingrich delegates to become unbound so they can vote for Romney? I am doing this because it would be beneath the dignity of Dr. Paul for me to say no and not help everyone vote their conscience. That is who Dr. Paul is. A good and decent man who asks nothing for himself and seeks only what is in the interests of liberty and freedom for all. That is why I do it. If you want to volunteer to help Dr. Paul, go to letronpaulspeak.com. Sign the petition. Then go to letronpaulspeak.com/volunteer to help gather signatures for the petition. You can get inside information about the federal case and convention strategies at my page, my Twitter page at USA_free_press. Vote for Dr. Paul, as if the very survival of our nation depends on it, because I assure you, it does. If you do not vote for Dr. Paul, it's your fault Obama wins. There are some well-meaning people who think that Romney delegates will change their vote because of election fraud. That is naive. That is naive. It will not happen. Romney delegates will change their vote only when they are convinced that their wife or husband or children or other loved ones may be put in concentration camps. That is the defining issue of the Organized Crime Convention in Tampa. It is frightening. It is real. It exists. The government plans to increase capacity to hold 10 million people in concentration camps. In my third video, I will focus on the additional proof. As you watch these videos, you will learn to deal with this frightening issue, and you will learn information that you can use to show Romney delegates that will change their votes. Be strong. The miracle has begun. Do you believe in miracles? we no longer have any choice. Ron Paul delegates need to know this information in these videos, so you can meet with Romney delegates to help them understand the serious criminal acts involving election fraud, and even the more fraud, and even the more frightening Romney support to imprison us citizens, imprison U.S. citizens in concentration camps on U.S. soil, which is all the reason any Romney delegate needs to not vote for Romney. The existence of these concentration camps is not disputed by Halliburton. They're there. You can see them. I showed them to you. There just is no dispute that these internment camps already exist. When your wife or your husband is imprisoned in a concentration camp, or your whole family is imprisoned without any court, without any legal counsel or any charges, for an indefinite term, you will know then that you never should have voted for Romney, who supports these concentration camps. But you don't know Romney supports the end of our Constitution. You don't know that yet, but you will in these videos. The time to save your loved ones, the time to save our Constitution, the time to save our nation is right now. Our ancestors, hundreds of years from now, will learn of Ron Paul. And as students, they will study for their history exams. And they will look at Ron Paul in the same stature as the Founding Fathers. And as they study for their exam, they will say, Ron Paul, liberty, freedom, he saved the Constitution. Ron Paul, liberty, freedom, he saved the Constitution. We will meet again soon for video number 3. I am Richard Gilbert. Thank you.